President Trump is appointing former New York prosecutor Jeanine Pirro as interim U.S. attorney. Pirro is probably best known for co-hosting The Five on Fox News. She is a close friend of the president and repeatedly pushed conspiracy theories in the aftermath of Trump's 2020 election loss. She replaces conservative activist Ed Martin, who had his nomination for top federal prosecutor in D.C. pulled by Trump after he faced pushback in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Trump posted, quote, "Jeanine is incredibly well qualified for this position, and she is in a class by herself." Joining me now, NBC's Ryan Riley. What more are we learning about this and, Jeanine Pirro?
Yeah, so what was happening here was Ed Martin was going to face this deadline on May 20th, at which point, the judge in D.C. would actually appoint someone to fill that position on an acting basis. So now what you're going to have is sort of an interim U.S. attorney, Ed Martin, and then stacked with another interim U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro. So this is going to be, I think, a little bit of a controversy here involving whether or not you can actually stack those two back to back, those interim positions back to back. And now Ed Martin is going to be over at the Justice Department. He's going to be deeply involved with some of their efforts that they are going, sort of the retribution campaign that I think Donald Trump has gone about. There's a weaponization committee that has been formed. He's going to be a part of that, which is going to be looking back at a lot of those January 6 cases. That was the main sticking point for Senator Tillis with Ed Martin, was his involvement with these January 6 cases and his close relationship, particularly with an individual who had posed as Adolf Hitler and made some anti-Semitic remarks in the past, who Ed Martin had praised. And, Jeanine Pirro has not had that same history. Before January 6th, she did feed a lot of those conspiracy theories that led up to that in the lead up to the attack. But in the aftermath, she did condemn the attack itself, said that people should be prosecuted, made some pretty strong comments afterwards. So there is that distinction. And you saw already Senator Tillis come out and say that he supports Jeanine Pirro for that position, Chris.
Do we know how Ed Martin is feeling after his nomination was withdrawn?
Yeah, I actually spoke with him yesterday, and despite the fact that he had a number of people fired during his tenure who were involved in those January 6 cases, and then he demoted a lot of the leaders who were involved in those Capitol riot cases. He had a ton of praise for the office and said that there were some of the sharpest lawyers that he had worked with, sort of saying that this was this opportunity that he sort of took on. And he sent a lot of there's a lot of controversies during Ed Martin's very short tenure there. From day one, he was sort of sending out these letters that violated DOJ policies, that opened up investigations into, say, Senator Chuck Schumer comments that were made 5 years ago. So there were a lot of controversies that came up in a very quick period of time for him, because he also didn't have any experience within the Justice Department. He's been this longtime conservative activist, and he didn't have any prosecutorial experience before he was named interim U.S. attorney by Trump on an inauguration day, and then immediately started taking part in those dismissals of all the January 6 cases that came about after Donald Trump mass pardoned everyone who was charged in connection with the Capitol riot.
Ryan Riley, thank you for your reporting as always.